Okay, I wanted to film a few things here. I got a few interesting things to show, but I also want to talk about this problem because it's pretty common and it could be tricky if you've never run into it. So the customer complaint was that water was overflowing out of the pan down into the ceiling. So the initial thought is always clogged drains, right? And that's not a bad thought. That's very common. I checked the drains and they look clear, but I blew them out anyway because sometimes you just need to do what you're told. You know what I mean? You got to keep customers happy. So I went through and blew them out. Then I started going back and looking at the traps. Well, this one, I looked down in it and it's just way too dry. And so I got to looking, saw that crack, and then poured some water in there because this is a very small crack. I'm not saying it's not significant, but it just, I was like, why is this thing leaking so bad? Well, there's a huge crack under here, and this must have froze this winter. So anyways, what'll happen is it'll suck air up through the crack, and it'll come in here and go into the pan. Well, you can have so much air going into the pan, especially on these units with high static, that no water can come out and flow down the drain until the unit shuts off. But some of these big buildings, and like this is a makeup air unit, it's, you know, sometimes they don't shut off and you'll have so much water build up in that pan that it just overflows. Well, I went and got some fittings. I let it run for a while just to get them some cooling, and I shut it down. And I mean, I wish I could have filmed this, but I was on the phone. Gallons and gallons of water just poured out of that pan. And I mean, this here on the roof is just what's leaking out of that crack. A bunch more went down into that drain. So a lot of water had built up in a short amount of time. So I'm gonna fix this, and like I said, show a few things that I think may be interesting. All right, I'm gonna cut this pipe here anywhere really. I just want to get these threads off of here, and you'll see why in a minute. But now I don't have to do this in this case, but I just want to show how you can make a nice square cut on a piece of pipe, or any shape really, a box or whatever you want to cut. So with pipe, at least, there's a couple of options. You can put something over it and trace your line. You can wrap like a piece of paper, sheet of plastic, rubber, whatever, mark your line. You can mark it with a tubing cutter and then cut it. I'm cutting this with a Sawzall, even though you can cut these with tubing cutters. I don't have a pair up here. Let me show how you get a nice perfect line on something like this in order to cut it. So you just set it down. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's a box or whatever. Then you set your Sharpie wherever you want to cut, and you just spin the object around, holding that Sharpie still. And you'll end up with a nice little line. Okay, so I'm going to cut this, and then we'll look at it. All right, so there's our cut. Been really nice to have a vise. No, I just needed to make a quick cut, but looks better if you have a line, doesn't it? Now, one thing I wanted to show, the supply house is kind of running low on fittings, so I wasn't sure if I'd have everything I need. I think I might, but if you're ever in a jam and you need to save a fitting, like let's say you didn't have that one and you needed to save it, I'm gonna show you a little trick for doing that. So you wanna find something that'll fit in that pipe. It could be another pipe, copper, hole saw, anything you can get that'll fit in there nicely. What you wanna do, just stick it in there and let it cook. By the way, don't breathe the fumes off of PVC. Okay, I'm gonna I don't recommend this, but I'm just gonna lightly touch it to see how hot it still is. Okay, I still got quite a bit of heat in that pipe, and because this is 1¼ inch and not 3/4, I'm gonna just let it cook, you know, until I'm just gonna make sure I dump as much heat into this as possible. So let's give it a little longer. All right, I think I've dumped quite a bit of heat in there. So this may be hard to show on camera. I may have to take it off camera so I can get the torque, but you're just gonna take your needle nose and roll the PVC up. It just becomes like Play-Doh. And there you go. Now, this one had already cracked, so, you know, obviously you wouldn't save this fitting, but that is how you can remove the pipe. Then you just want to chuck something like this in a drill, go in there, clean that up, prime it, and glue it, and you'll be good to go. At least on a drain line. I wouldn't do that on any kind of pressure line or anything, but that works really well. Now, before you put in threaded PVC or plugs or anything like that, it's a good idea to put some silicone grease on there. And I've used Nylog in a pinch, and it works fine. It doesn't really react with the PVC or anything. Sometimes that's all I have in my bag, but that's just gonna make the next guy's life that much easier, because sometimes this stuff does stick pretty bad. All right, there we go. And by the way, if you haven't seen my video on this torch hose, man, I really like this setup. I had to buy a new torch because my Benzomatic crapped out. I like this one. I haven't really put a ton of use on it, but it seems pretty nice. It's nice that the tip swivels around, so it's just on an O-ring. That's pretty nice. The Benzomatic didn't do that, and that was annoying sometimes. But this hose, I think you can just get these at Home Depot, but it's really, really nice for a propane torch to be able to have a hose there. So wanted to show that. And I'm really loving this little M12 one-handed Sawzall. It's really convenient for cutting up pipe and stuff. This thing's just been dripping on me forever. I got a video where I show how you can just shove a paper towel in there on a zip tie and pull it out. That does work really well. I just don't have one with me or zip ties or anything, so I just cut the unit on, and we're gonna let this fan fire up and suck that water back so I can dry that. And I know that you can get away with, especially with some glues, gluing them, you know, with a drip like that, but I would rather not if I can avoid it. No more water coming out now. I mean, yeah, not a problem. All right, I'll dry that up and get it all glued. All right, there it is. Maybe not the prettiest thing in the world. It's a little, kind of had to do that to get my angles right. Nah, whatever. But I'm gonna get some water and fill this up so we don't have the same problem all over again. And that's that. I went ahead and added a support because I had the fittings to do it. It is supported down there, but that's kind of a long run to go with no support, so yeah, a little janky, but it works. I don't have good access to water up here. I just wish that there would be a building code where you had to put water up on the roof, or at least within a certain distance. But anyways, it ended up being faster for me just to let the trap fill itself. So I no longer have suction at this pipe, which means that trap is full and will continue to fill. So that's all it takes. It's pretty humid today, so just a little bit of run time filled that trap right up.